Welcome to Bedroom Studios Podcast, the podcast where we talk about what goes on behind the scenes in a musician's world and bridge the industry gap by bringing their stories, expertise, and advice to early career artists. Subscribe to join us for a fun chat about life as a creative person, tips and tricks for pursuing an artistic career, navigating the music industry, and more. My name is Emma Della Rossa. I'm a singer-songwriter based in Toronto, and today I'm interviewing Feura. Rising from the grit of Toronto's underground, her music is a fierce collision of grunge, punk, and hard-hitting alt-rock, fueled by a fierce need to break free from the expectations and speak the truth. With a growing community of 171,000 followers, she's become a voice for those who've been overlooked, misunderstood, or straight up rejected. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Emma. I'm excited to be here.
So to start off our conversation, can you introduce yourself to our audience and give a bit of background on your music and artistic journey?
My name is Feura, and I am a queer punk rocker who also dabbles in a little bit of alt-rock music there. I am from Toronto, but I grew up in rural Ontario, and the way I like to introduce myself is I am the person you bring home to come out to your parents and make them very disappointed. In the best way possible, in a liberating way. It's actually really surprising. I've had a lot of people, even in their mid 50s, late 60s, because they grew up with that punk rock scene, and they're back in the day and things like that. They actually really tend to like my stuff because it's so reminiscent of what they grew up on.
Yeah.
So that's been really cool. And it's even been awesome. I have a lot of queer kids who bring their parents to my shows to introduce them to what the, I guess, modern Gen Z queer community is kind of like. And again, because of that reminiscent energy of decades they grew up in, they're like, oh, I get it now. I see.
That's so great. Do you have a really strong connection with your fans? Because you have so many.
Yeah, I would say for me, I am not much of an online person myself in my day-to-day life. Before I got into doing music, I was actually more into live theater. So I wanted to be a theater director, and being very passionate about live shows is totally where my heart has started and where it's continued. So being in that in-person setting with fans or part of the queer community is so important and integral to actually what I do as an artist. So I feel that connection builds more when you're in person with people than just doing live streams or just doing online. Not that that's not valuable as well. But I think, in person is something that Gen Z especially is so desperate for, because we grew up during this time of COVID, and it's unfortunate, but you're seeing kids now not even be able to tell the difference between an AI face and a real human face. So yeah. I'm a big advocate for that in-person connection.
Yeah, it's so important.
Yeah.
Your live shows are so amazing. And even just watching videos of them, you can see how you captivate the audience and just really lock in with them. How did you get to that point from where did you start when you were beginning to play live and building your live show, and how did you get to where you are now?
Well, like any other artist, doesn't start good. Everyone starts as a beginner. I had horrible stage fright. Other than acting on stage, I've always been good at improv theater. That's something I am a chronic yapper, as I say. So you give me a platform, do that nonstop, I got you all day. So improv theater is sort of where I started. But when it came to music, I was so insecure about my voice and my music that I was making, that the way that I learned to break that and start to develop a stage presence, I guess, was I just had a friend who started pulling me out to open mics all the time. And the first time here in Toronto, there's a place called the Painted Lady. I used to go there every week. I went to 5 different open mics a week continuously for 5 months until I got over my stage fright. And I got up on stage. I was so nervous. I don't even think I said words. I think they thought I was rapping because no sound was really coming out other than I'm singing the song. And I wanted to cry the entire time I was on stage. I was shaking. But I started to realize nobody gave a, can I swear on this podcast?
Here, you can swear.
Great. Nobody gave two flying fucks about me on stage because everyone else who was pretty much at these performances are other open mic performers and they're too in their head about their own music. So once I kind of like got into that, and then I started DJing as well, as like making my own tracks and going out there and like kind of performing hyperpop is where I began. It just like I realized like, oh, everyone, and this is another like tip for confidence too. Most people are so concerned with their own world and being their own main character and thinking about how everyone else is thinking about them. No one actually really cares about what you're doing. So like go ahead, make a fool of yourself on stage, and that's what I did for a very long time. And then eventually like you're gonna start learning what people like and what people don't like and building off of that until you develop like your own style. So that's what kind of happened over time. Also, I lip sync a lot to music in my bedroom and dance around naked. And that's a really good way to practice.
That's what I was doing last night. Like I had clothes on. I had clothes on, but like that's what I was doing.
Okay, well, get naked. That's your next step. Seriously, it's a good way to like get like just used to being. I don't want to say like your animalistic self, but I will say also it is burning hot in my apartment at all times. So the nakedness sometimes is truly a necessity.
I think a lot of people, including myself, like underestimate the amount of time and like the amount of like repetitions of like performing live that it takes to get comfortable and to get good at it.
And I will shout out to I am really lucky, and I know we'll talk about it later into the Canadian Musicians Cooperative, but I have been lucky enough to have mentors who coming from a theater background, and especially like I was more on the directing side, there's a lot of different thought, what do you call them? Idea groups, anyway, of directors who have different like methods to like how do you direct people, how do you put actors on stage? It's the same thing with the music industry. You have directors who have different methodologies to follow for building like good stage presence and good form. And the one that I follow, and shout out to this book if you are an emerging artist looking to improve your stage presence and live shows, is the Tom Jackson method. And it actually goes through and teaches you like how do you create moments in a show? How do you like place your feet on stage? How do you have proper stance and like posture? How do you do like a mic stand trick? Like all of that kind of stuff. And the big person he's known for working with is people like Taylor Swift and Shawn Mendes, which is hilarious for me, of course, coming from like more of like a punk rock background. But like, you know, anything that has basics, you can form into your own stylistic thing.
For Canadian Musicians Cooperative, you were the artistic and music director for their Emerging Artist Showcase. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. The Canadian Musicians Cooperative, first of all, huge shout out to them. They're the reason really that I ended up getting so seriously into music and how I've been able to keep an independent career up until the point of where I'm at now of like writing grants, funding my own projects, and actually going through a lot of the resources indie labels do without having to go to an indie label. So for anyone who doesn't know them, they are a multi-stakeholder, not-for-profit group, cooperative who is owned by like the industry, artists, as well as audience members, which is like so fucking cool. We have a studio, we have like a rehearsal space, but they run this amazing summer programming where they actually go through Canada Summer Jobs and they pay young emerging artists to learn about the music industry, as well as get performance hours in. So joining in 2021, it was during COVID, I started out just like, am I doing this as a hobby or is this like serious? And me being like the absolute nerd that I am, when I latch onto something, I need to know every single facet about it. I got really into like learning about the industry and that sort of stuff. It was still during COVID, so they weren't doing their showcase yet, but I was like, I got to come back next year. I got to keep doing this. Came back the next year and I was actually a showcase cast member. So they run, it's like a 3-hour long show where they bring in, at this time, it was like a lot of like high school students, like people under 30, very young, new. I had never really performed with a band before. And I just fell in love with it. I got to do like two whole songs or something like that
Oh,
in this 3 hour long show. But I was just so enamored and like in love with the process and actually working with a band that was the reason I kind of translated out of doing hyperpop where I was producing tracks on my own into working with a band because I watched at the rehearsals with the music director who was Brandon Pellet at the time of, oh my gosh, this is the exact like theater upbringing that I was doing on more of like a contemporary theater side. So from there, I did another year, came back as a cast member, and from everything that I learned, I had formed my own band and started, of course, like touring and gigging and doing my own shows. And how the cooperative works is it's a waterfall mentorship program. So people who start out like I did in 2021, like little baby, not knowing anything at all, slowly will grow mentorship throughout the organization, of course,
mm,
based off of your own want and work towards it. But that led into me actually becoming music director last year and being able to direct the show myself. So I directed a 3 hour long showcase, got to pick the music, got to work with, I think it was a cast and crew of 40 plus people, might have been 60. I'm blanking on the number right now, but it was significant. This project I think had a budget of over $200,000. So it
wow.
was huge opportunity for me to really test my own abilities and really improve the way that I'm even music directing my own band right now. And I'm returning this year again. There's a new music director. His name is David. I'm currently mentoring him right now. But also, even I'm still coming back as a cast member because there's so much value in learning different facets of that program. So this year, my goal is to really come back as a backup vocalist and learn
Mm.
about what is that role in the industry and how can I level up my skills as a vocalist to be more versatile across working on my own project and other people's.
That's
That was a
amazing.
very long-winded answer.
No, this is good. This is the space for the long
Excellent.
answers. When people give like a two-word answer, I'm always like, what do I
I told you
say
it's like
now?
certified yapper. Like I'm here for the job.
This is good. This is good.
Awesome.
Yeah. I find that, and it's really frustrating for me because I feel like now I'm really decently confident in myself, but when I'm working with other people on, like if I have like a recording session or if we're doing a rehearsal, I'm finding I'm still struggling to confidently step into that role of the creative leader. And I always have a very clear vision and I always know what I want and I'm able to communicate it. But for some reason, I get so like I speak very timidly and it's frustrating because I'm like, oh, like I know what I want to say and I am saying it, but it sounds like I don't like it sounds like I'm unsure of myself. So I was wondering, do you have advice for artists that are leading their own projects to sort of like take on the role of a leader?
It's really interesting being a solo artist, and a lot of people actually mistaken my project and like the music I'm working on as being a band because I perform with a band, and they're so used to in those sorts of spaces like you have to have a band, otherwise like you're a poser or blah blah blah, whatever bull crap, right? And as a band leader, it is a very different role because when you're walking into the room with a band, it's a lot more of like a collaborative space of everybody being like, all right, what is the music we're creating? What is the vision we're creating? What is, the project we're working on? And I have, of course, huge respect to that sort of stuff. The way I've kind of worked and the way my brain operates is like, I'm very like, I see what I want in my brain. And I think that is
Mm.
a product of me originating my training, like even with the National Theater School was where I was like on scholarship, go to U of T, like to have that and even to shout out Theater by the Bay, who put me through a director mentorship. I've always had that little more of like control freak visionary. So I get what you mean about coming into the room and not knowing how to take control of it. And I think as a solo artist, the best thing you can do is to know that the musicians who are in your band are looking for a leader. They're
Mm.
not looking to be the leader in the room necessarily because they're coming knowing that they're working on your project. So it can be really difficult sometimes because I've worked with young emerging artists who are just starting to form their own bands and they're too afraid to speak to their musicians, because like even for myself, I'm not like some jazz guy who has all the theory or language in the world. But if you're working with truly talented musicians who are in it for the right reasons and aren't there to feed their ego, which is like something you can run into with a lot of musicians, and I truly believe that's built out of insecurity, they're going to want to build out your vision. So even if you don't have the words to completely describe what it is that you want, if you're still just like able to be like, I think we need more energy in this section. Maybe it's from the percussion section. If you're working with a great drummer, he's going to know what you want, right? And even if you're working with a drummer who's still on his way to becoming a professional musician, which like for early in my career, like no shade to my drummer. I love Edison Dietrich is my drummer. He's like a brother to me. Both of us beginning. I couldn't sing. He was not the best drummer in the world. But no matter, we both wanted to be able to improve our skills. So he was still able to like try things out and try things in the room. And I think a lot of people, I struggle really badly with anxiety. Like I have ADHD. And it's like it crippled me for a long time of not saying what was on my mind, of worrying that I'm going to say the wrong thing. And creativity is messy. Just say fuck it and just do it. And if it doesn't work, guess what? You haven't put it on stage yet. You can try something else. And if you do put it on stage, do something different for the next show.
Yeah. Something I love about live performances is that it could be different every time.
Truly. Should be different every time. Yeah. Otherwise you're not working with your audience.
I like it's like such a fun space to try out like different arrangements and different versions of songs. Like when we were recording stuff, we can really get like stuck in that, like, oh, it's going to be this way for forever. And it has to be like the recording, but it really doesn't.
Yeah. And that's a big thing too. When it comes to my music, because I work with a different team for my recorded music than I work with for my live music. For my recorded music, I am looking a little more to think about how is this going to be listener friendly? How is it, actually to take a tip from Taylor Swift's book. I know I got the rocker talking about Taylor Swift. But again, like her or not, she's done things right. And what she has done is recorded her music and then made the live version better. So that you're going to want to come to the live show to see and listen to that better version. And even Lady Gaga, who I'm a huge fan of, is also a big proponent of this. And making live versions longer, where you can introduce more musical themes, make more complex music, have more or different instrumentation than the tracks that you have recorded, is actually a really, really important element to live music, because that's what makes it special. So as silly as it is, sometimes, yes, you need to dumb down the recorded music. Make it shorter, make it dumber sometimes.
I was listening to some of your stuff last night and like watching some of your videos, and I was like in my room listening on headphones, and I'm just like, oh, like I'm watching this video, but like it feels so wrong to be sitting in a chair watching this. Like I feel like I need to be jumping around and screaming along with it.
That's awesome to hear. I find it funny because recently I've been opening for different bands. And sometimes when you're like opening, you get a very different audience than usually what comes to your shows. And my shows, everyone's dancing, nobody gives a fuck, right? But opening up for a lot more like dude bro bands at like different places, the audience loves to just like stand there, and it reminds me too, like I went to Germany.
Stand stoically.
Yeah, like a German audience is known for like standing there, zero expression, and then we'll come up to you after and be like, that was the best thing I've ever seen in my life. And it's like, couldn't fucking tell. I'm so glad. Like
do you feel like you have to adjust what you're doing on stage when the audience isn't being as responsive?
Oh my God, I'm shitting bricks. Yeah. There are moments where I'm like, this is terrible. Like, oh my God, this is going so poorly. You'll never be able to tell on my face. I'm an incredible person at masking. But I'm having an anxiety attack, right? And then I'll get off stage and people are like, oh, incredible, start to finish. And I'm like, really? my bandmates are actually like they know when I'm having a bad time, or like I have this like evil stare that the guys on stage will know that if like they're not dancing enough or if they're like missing cues, I give them like laser eyes, they call it. No one in the audience can tell, but the guys are like, oh fuck. Like, oh my God. I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
You're just so passionate about the song and you just have like strong eye contact. That's what it is.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
A lot of my music is like it's very indie and sad. And so there's a lot of songs that you wouldn't really dance to. So when I look at the audience, they're just like they're staring and like I don't know if it's like are you being like reflective and listening or are you just
I could never be
thinking of something else.
Like, I could never be like a sob artist just because that would stress me out so much every single night.
Yeah,
So
I
respect to
remember.
you.
Oh, thank you. I don't know. Like I see that was a big insecurity I had last year when I was playing a lot of shows is that like my music is too sad or like it's not exciting enough for a live show. And like there was a good thing about it because like once I started playing live, like I started writing a lot more upbeat songs because I wanted to write things that were fun to play live. And it wasn't because I was insecure, but it was just like, hey, like I have this one upbeat song and that was really fun. So I want to write more like that to perform.
Like another thing you can do, and actually if you like listen to a lot of my music, it is kind of sad, but you take a sad song and you make it sound happy.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the song I released recently. Like it has like such a banger like beat and instrumental, but like it's I don't think it's that sad. But people like will come up to me and be like, "Oh, it's so the lyrics are so sad." I'm like, "Okay."
I mean, if Adele can have such a success,
Yeah.
I think yeah, you can rock out on the sad stuff.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, to I guess finish my story, I realized that so for a lot of the shows that I played, they were for like those foreplay evenings where the people at the venue would just grab like four random bands or artists and put them together. And so not that this is like there's anything like inherently wrong about this, but I was placed like in the middle of like a bunch of metal bands.
Oh no!
So like it was a fun time, but it's like there was such a contrast between like the vibes and also the people who were coming to see the metal bands like they were the ones that would get up and dance and start jumping up and down. So it was just like yeah, it was just there was like such a difference between it's like people like really rocking out and then me being like here's my sad indie pop song.
It's hilarious. I can relate to that so deeply because again, I'm like I really make like alt rock music to like more like alternative music. I wouldn't call it like punk because like punk's kind of characterized like pop punk is characterized by like that singing, but it also has like that very specific like whiny like chord structure.
Where are you?
Yeah, where are you? That's not me at all. But I very much have that like punk rocker energy, and that's very much like who I am as a person. So I get hired onto a lot of gigs where it's like hardcore punk bands, post-punk bands, and stuff like that. And my music doesn't quite sound like the same vein. And also, like, I'm a contemporary vocalist. Like, what I study on a daily basis is my voice and like what I'm putting 2 hours of practice into. And like, not to say there's a culture in punk music where it's frowned upon to be able to sing, but sometimes there is. Like, it's very much more about the screaming and that kind of stuff. So I think one of the funniest comments I ever had after going up on stage was I was between these like hardcore punk bands, just like play shit, screaming, and I love that shit. By the way, I mostly listen to hardcore punk, and Lady Gaga, weird combo. But someone came up to me afterwards and he goes, yo, that wasn't like your traditional punk song. I don't know what to call it, but I really like your melodic punk. But like they won't admit it, right? They're like, it's a melodic punk. And I was like, sure, I'll fucking take it. I love that.
That's so wholesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. He was a very nice guy. He was like, I was opening up for Day Glow Abortions and Blackout, which are two like huge. Those are like, I guess they're not hardcore, but like classic punk Canadian. So they're awesome. I love them.
That's so cool. I feel so much anxiety like being out in the world at night and like going out into the city and like when people come to talk to me at shows, especially if they're like men are great. But like when people come to talk to me at shows and they're like men or like especially older men that I've never met before in my life, I get so anxious. And I feel like I need to get over that because I need to like be a musician.
Well, I think like it's very much you need to validate that feeling because that feeling is, first of all, not your fault. Like, not and to anyone listening too. If you are a woman who feels nervous at a show, talking to an older man or men in general, unfortunately, there is a culture that has created an environment where that is pretty fucking normal for women to feel. I feel that. I'm fucking naked on stage sometimes, performing to like all male audiences. And not all the time when it's like my shows and stuff like that, but when I'm hired on other gigs, like I never know what the demographic is of the people coming out, and you never know what someone's intentions are. And
Mm.
I have been groped multiple times, like crowd surfing, and like it sucks to say that is part of the job, but like even I went to go see Youngblood, and I got like a free ticket to see that. And
Whoa.
he had this moment where he invited or a girl up on stage to come select like what the next song would be. This girl comes up on stage, and mind you, he is a male rock star, right? Like we don't talk about a sexual assault of men as much, but really like no matter what gender you are, if you're working in music, it sucks to say, but he was getting groped by this woman.
Oh.
Like she was not answering the question of what song to perform next. She would not stop touching him, which clearly he was, keeping up the facade of, this is funny, but like, let's be honest, that's uncomfortable for anybody of any gender. And they actually had to have security like come remove this person from on stage from like trying to just like grab all over his body. So it's not weird for you to have these feelings. I'm sure even big stars like that have those feelings. And I would say it sucks to say like acting is part of the job sometimes, but it is, right? And I always come at it with an open mind until someone gives me a reason to feel unsafe. I'm
Mm.
gonna assume the best in you. But if you're giving me reason right now in my like intuition that I'm in an unsafe position, that's where it's really, really helpful for you as an artist or like for anyone listening who is like a solo musician. If you're able to bring a friend with you who you're able to like kind of give the eyes to, if you feel like you're really in an uncomfortable situation, and funnily enough, that's my mom. Because
Mom's are
sometimes
the
like
best.
I've been put in those uncomfortable situations where I'm like, there is this interaction is not going in a direction that I think is good, right? Being able to have somebody there to like back you up or like talking to your bandmates about it is something I
Mm.
think is really important. So you're meeting a lot of people that you don't really know. So always good to assume the best in somebody until they give you a reason to, watch out.
Mm. That's good advice.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm sorry those things have happened to you. That's just shouldn't shouldn't be like that.
Yeah, it sucks to say it's part of the job, but like I'm pretty sure if you talk to anyone who like is a front person or is like the solo project and like has that, like it unfortunately, like you just have to know again, majority of people are great. Majority of
Hmm.
people. It's just gonna be like that one or two that is just like gonna put your guard up.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I need to have like more of a filter with my face. I don't know if I'm actually gonna like do this because I don't want to change for society, but when I'm in general, whenever I see any person who like comes up and talks to me, like if it's someone I know, even more so, but like I have like I will like smile and just be like, hey, and like just really like be open towards them, and it's like a reflex. And so I don't want to lose that about myself, but like I think it sometimes attracts people who are insecure because they seek that kind of validation.
honestly, the fact that you're even having those self-reflective thoughts is like a good thing. Because like, no, not to throw a little shade, but to like throw shade to Chapel Rowan. Like, it does come with the job. If you're getting to a certain point of fame, you should appreciate the people who are giving you money, like at the end of the day, to fund your career travel. And having a face of kindness, I think, even if you're not a musician and just like a regular person in the world, is a good thing to have. Not to say like don't be yourself, but like, if you're not happy and you're unhappy all the time, every interaction you have with somebody is unhappy, maybe do some work, like dude, go get a therapist. Yeah, I don't know. Life is short, be goofy, have fun. Like
My Instagram bio is the happy girl who writes sad songs.
I like it.
Speaking of writing songs, segue, tell me about your debut album.
You need to have like a segue noise there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, no, writing my debut album. Before jumping ahead into album, what I will say is like EP's coming out. So we'll say with something there. We're down the line for anything else right now. I'm thinking about that in the moment. Yeah, writing has been a 2-year long process, I want to say. Much more than that. I mean, I started writing music kind of just like in my bedroom 2020. I had written a large catalog of music on my own, but I think especially, and some of the best advice I had ever been given is it is seriously so important for like anyone who is an emerging artist listening to this podcast. I think that there is a culture, and a very toxic culture, around having to do everything yourself in order to be respected as an artist. I think it's like, you'll open up a track and see Ariana Grande's song was written by Ariana Grande plus 9 other people. And people will be like, oh, she's not a real musician. And I'm like, did you hear the whistle tones that girl just hit? Like, I'm sorry, I don't know what the hell you think a real musician is, but like, if she's spending all day writing songs, how the hell is she gonna have time to learn how the fuck to do that, right? Like, everyone has something that they're really good at. And in order to master something, you need to put those hours in. So it's kind of what they say, jack of all trades is a master of none, right? So for me, songwriting has been something I always absolutely loved, adored, but it is not my specialty per se. And bringing in collaborators and other songwriters to actually work with, and people, a good general rule is if you are always the most talented person in the room, you're not going anywhere.
You're in the wrong room.
Yeah, right? How are you supposed to learn anything if you are always the best, but you're not even like close to being the top of the top? Because guess what? You're not famous like for being the best. So I was so freaking lucky. I love this person to death. I love my team to death. And that is my homies at Featurette, which is the band well, 2 parts of the band, 2 out of 3, I'm working to create this album with. And Lex from Featurette, she is the singer and songwriter, is such an amazing friend, mentor of mine, and somebody who I really connect and resonate with, like on an emotional level. We're 2 just like queer people who are like somewhat female, but not, with like very similar life experiences and like anxiety problems. And she really brought me in to the studio with her and her collaborative partner, Mark, part of the writing production duo called Legal Audio, and was like, all right, let's see what magic we can create in a room. And we sat down, and our very first session ever, I was going through a breakup. It was like fresh, and actually we went to kombucha before we like sat down and went into this writing room, and the 2 of us were drinking and like talking about our trauma because we're oversharers, of course. And she was like, oh, okay, we got to bring him in the room and you got to dump all this trauma. So here I am, like this guy who's, his name's Mark Coacher, never met before in my life, and Lex, who I'd been on one kombucha friend date with, like sobbing my heart out about this like horrible, abusive breakup I had been through, right? And we wrote Sick Medicine. And after that day, we were like, holy fuck, we've just found some magic here. We have to do this again. So over the next few months, we consistently had like 1 writing session a month. because like again, they're also professional artists, and at any level of the industry, money is tight sometimes. So, you have to balance your passion projects and
Mhm.
who you're able to just like work with for fun and actually eating at the end of the day. Like, so what we were able to do was like one session a month to keep this writing going. Of course, like, love those guys to death. Um, and we just kept kind of writing little bits of the album until I was able to actually secure a grant.
Yay.
Part of my work at Canadian Musicians Cooperative has been teaching me how to grant write. So I've been applying for grants for like 3 years, getting no after no after no. And I got a CCA grant for
Yay.
$60,000. And I was like, holy fuck, the album is a go. So I told
Yay!
these guys, and we were like, holy fuck, the album's a go, because now we're on a deadline for this fucking grant. And we ended up writing like, I think like 16 more songs or something like that, which is now we're cutting down and can't say too much about what's coming out first and what the whole plan is. But those songs are finally starting to roll out. People have been coming to the live shows since January, has been when I've been debuting a lot of this new music. So a lot of, if you're coming to live shows now, you're getting a sneak peek at like what's actually going to come out as recorded projects. So, this project that we're creating, and the art that you're going to hear coming out, is as much their creative hearts in it as mine, because really it's been an amazing like group creative process together.
That's amazing, and congratulations.
Thank you. I to talk about like, all the work and like how the hell am I doing this full time as an independent artist? Like, I need to shout out the amazing granting system that we have here in Canada, that I am so graciously like able to fund and live right now through that grant while putting like my whole entire everything into this album project, as well
Mhm.
as other jobs, because as musicians we have like 5 jobs to what we're doing.
The last big topic I want to talk about is branding. Because even just like if I were to open your social media right now, like I could immediately see what you're about, and it's like so clear and cohesive. Can you talk more about that process?
Yeah, for sure. Funny, this is actually what I work on a lot with emerging artists at the Canadian Musicians Cooperative
Mhm.
as like a mentor there. So if you are an emerging artist and you want that, go check them out. And I'm helping to help out in any sort of way I can. Branding is not something that is born overnight. I didn't think up Feura and like whatever this is as a persona. You saw me during Honey Jam. That audition in 2021, 2022, I forget what year it was. I looked
Something like
very
that.
different. My logo was different. I drew it on a piece of paper and had a friend like vector trace it out. Like, it was a lot more glittery, a lot more campy. I used to like wear cheetah print and like neon pinks and blues and greens were the colors. But since I was young, I have always been a little bit of a visual artist.
Hmm.
I've always been drawing. I'm not a good drawer. I'm very highly proficient in Canva, not
Yes.
Photoshop. But my primary has always been sort of like fashion and makeup is really what I do. And even now, like a lot of the stuff that I'm presenting on stage, I learned from some really awesome punks how to do that hand sewing style and like using studding and all that kind of stuff, and really big in recycled materials. So my brand has really been a natural progression of who I am as a person. It's not everything about who I am. I don't, really show off when I'm scratching my ass on the couch while like covered in chip dust, because like that's not glittery and fun, although it is true. Branding is really born out of like figuring out what your uniqueness is as a person and distilling it into a really clear artistic vision. So if you go into like my Instagram right now, you get all the colors, the different vibes. Like, I'm super inspired by other, and again, this is kind of where like the punk thing comes in, is call it a special interest, if you will. I love learning about like 80s punk and that whole scene. And I have friends who actually the managing director at the co-op, she was part of one of the first women ever to be part of like the Canadian orchestra, who was a female percussionist. And she was a punk back in the day. It was like green mohawk, all this kind of stuff. And I have a lot of older friends like that who actually have passed down their old punk gear to me. So that is how like my brand kind of formed and how I've built things from there. But apart from like the visual aesthetic and building that really clear what you see, it's really important to know what the hell your brand stands for. And as an artist, that's the part that has to be your truth. Because so many artists, and it sucks to say, their genuine truth is, I want you to like me. I want to be famous. I feel insecure, so I want validation from people. And although that might work for some egomaniacs, right? Genuinely, if you are in love with your craft, if you are in love with your art, and you have a real reason that you have to, I'm talking like, I remember being 10 years old, and I had a theater director come up to a group of us, we're all fucking 10-year-olds, and he asked us, are you willing to starve on a couch and sleep in some other person's basement in order to pursue your art? And all of us were there like, yeah, I don't know, I'm 10. My mom makes me fucking cookies. Like, but that's stuck with my brain ever since, because he's so fucking right. That's the question you have to ask yourself. Because if you're not here for the right reasons, no one's going to connect with your message, and you're not going to have the resilience necessary in order to seriously pursue this, unless like mommy and daddy are backing you with millions of dollars, because why the fuck not? Which is unfortunately a lot of in the arts industry, because it costs a lot in order to do this. You're not willing to starve, right? So for me, getting into music and having that message, doing theater, the reason I did theater was because I am super into politics. Like, I was known as the debater at my high school. I was always like the loudest in the room advocating, because like I'm a person of color, I'm queer, and I was bullied for it all the fucking time, and I have a loud mouth. So a lot of my history has been, whether or not I like it, my existence is politicized. So instead of crawling into a hole, I've always been the person to kind of be like, you know what, fuck you, I'm going to learn about everything until I'm right. In a good way, right? So yeah. I got into theater, actually wanting to do theater of the oppressed style stuff, like performance political art, and interactive theater. And then I learned music is just like a better way to do that, to connect with more people, because music is so powerful. So my message, like genuinely actually what I believe in and what I want, is to like build queer community. And I think that is to heal my inner child that was so fucking alone. Like, so, that, as much as it's like part of the brand and the brand message and what makes it so clear, it has to, like, it's genuine, Yeah. So, those are kind of the two parts I always think of when it comes to a brand.
That's really, really amazing advice. Thank you for sharing that.
Hell yeah.
I've been thinking a lot about those. It's funny, I have a song called Inner Child that I'm working on right now, but for the past year, two and a half years, I've been thinking a lot about those kinds of themes, about like thinking about who you were as a kid and how that influences you now and all of that sort of stuff. And so like I really resonate with what you were saying about that. I guess like to connect it with branding, I feel like our strongest message is when we're doing things that like are what our younger self needed at that time, but then also like honoring who that person was, like kind of both sides of it. Yeah, totally. Because like I wanted to be a songwriter since I was 7 years old, when I watched Camp Rock on TV. So like, but then I've always like pushed that aside because I was insecure. But the more I do the things that I wanted to do as a kid, the more I feel like I'm living my authentic life.
That is exactly, like, that is the reason to do it at the end of the day, right? Is like, if this is the thing that brings you the most joy, who gives a fuck if you can afford a Mercedes? Yeah, and that's like something I'm like, truly, like, I was in theater before this. I always knew I was going to starve, and I really don't care, right? Like, as long as I got my needs met, the only thing that excites me is like having the ability to get more people to actually like be able to make like bigger projects or bigger artistic visions. And, again, maybe the reason I'm a Lady Gaga fan, she has all the money in the world and she's still making incredible art, right? Because sometimes you see artists and they're just like, I have all the money, it doesn't really matter anymore. Now I'm just doing shit to make me more money. It's like, that is a person who is putting every bit of effort into being an incredible performer. I respect the hell out of that. So I'll say, like, I can't wait to see more of what you're doing as well,
Oh,
and like what you're
thanks.
coming out with stuff. And seriously, like, if your reason is like you feel like you have to do it because it feeds your soul, you have to do it then.
I just finished school and I'm very excited to do.
More of like a full-time music situation, but the lack of structure and the uncertainty of like being a freelancer and not knowing what the financial situation is going to be has been stressing me out. Do you have any advice for dealing with uncertainty? Because I think that also comes with the job. Like, this is what I signed up for.
Oh yeah, yeah. I am somebody who thrives under chaos. But honestly, before I got funding for my album, every day was just like I was genuinely pretty close to giving up. If it took another year to like having to get shit done, like just the waking up every single day, just going like, what am I doing? Because like there's only so much that like it depends on what your goals are and depends on what your situation is. But like for me, my goals were I want to make the best art I can possibly, and I want it to be something I'm proud of. And in order to do that, like you need money, right? You need to be able to afford that studio. You need to be able to afford like shout out to again Mark. He is also putting an insane amount of hours into this stuff, and he has family to feed. Like I respect the fuck out of that, right? Um, and like totally makes sense. You can't dedicate yourself full time to like a project unless you have funds in order to like feed your kid. I get it, right? Um, but it really was having to, I'm very calculated. Every minute of my existence has kind of been like calculated. But I the time that I felt the most chaos, and I think sort of the similar feeling that you're feeling is when I took that step to actually step away from university education. I was at U of T and then I transferred over to TMU into the professional music program. And like, depends on who you are. I really wasn't getting anything out of that. And my mentors were saying, like, why are you spending this time learning about stuff that, in their opinion, and my opinion, I'm kind of already there with the level of education. What I needed was the time and enough money to feed myself to put in my full effort in order to do it. So, how they broke it down to me was Beyonce has the same amount of time in a day as you have. Beyonce has to train as a musician. So, like, how many hours a day do you need to actually put towards your craft in order to get to a point where you are performing at a level you want to perform at? So, my goal has always been I want to perform at huge stages. And it's not for an audience saying, I just love theater and I love the idea of being able to like run actually across a stage and have that freedom. They're like, great. So in order to do that, you need to be working out probably for an hour and a half a day. So there's my hour and a half. For me, vocally, I was not up to par of where I needed to be. I would not be ready to record my album. So they said, great, there's 2 hours of rehearsal training right there. Like I had to work up to it, otherwise you're going to hurt your voice, but you need to get there. Oh, you want to play guitar on stage? How about you add another 20 minutes of guitar, metronome, and ear training on there? So already the schedule that I was looking at was pretty fucking similar to, like, not as intensive, but I'm basically building my own school program that they would have done at somewhere like a music program where you're actually going to train for voice or something like that. Because instead of having a teacher there to keep you accountable, I have my goals in order to keep me accountable. So I built out this own program. It's, of course, getting a private lesson teacher or something like that is also really important. And then after that, you have to ask, okay, so what are the steps I need to do to, and music isn't just music, it's a business, right? What are the steps I need to do in a day in order to build my business? Okay, I need a website. So what am I doing? I have this many hours to work on my admin work and to do this, right? I need to work on my merch. What are my streams of revenue? And how am I building those streams of revenue? So That's where like you start splitting up your days into thinking about how am I maximizing what I'm doing to build audience, to build a business that can actually handle growth when I get there. Because another big mistake I'll see artists do is like they spend all day making TikTok content, all day making YouTube content. Incredible, amazing, love it. Problem, something goes viral. Something goes viral and you don't have a business that actually has the infrastructure in order to handle that viral moment to maximize the impact that it can actually have to sharing your music, right? So that's what I've been spending the last few years doing is actually building the infrastructure to handle if I have that viral moment in the future. So I go through periods of focusing and building social media to actual focusing and building of the business. So sometimes like, yeah, I'm not getting tons of likes. Like right now, I'm kind of posting on Instagram and TikTok. It's not my priority because I'm banking content to actually release with releases, right? I don't know if that was super helpful. It's a super complex
No, it's
kind of
very
thing to go
helpful.
over. But like, yeah, like kind of like, for example, where you're at with your career right now, what I would probably be really working towards, and even like where I'm at right now, I am writing 2 grants this week. I'm handing in 2 grants this week, right? I would really be looking at what are those grants that I need and what milestones do I need to meet in order to receive those grants. So there's your goals, right? And that's how you start building out your days.
Yeah. It kind of goes back to what you were saying about the jack of all trades. Because if you're like I do a lot of things and I'm like thinking, okay, if I spend an hour a day on each of the things I want to do, I'm not gonna have enough hours in the day.
Seriously, yeah. And you have to rest. So many people burn out, and that's what's going to kill you in the long run. Yeah, I still burn out, but like I used to burn out like once a week, and it's bad because you cannot sustain yourself.
Yeah, and I think it's especially because of social media, there's this pressure to constantly be relevant or to constantly be like active. But sometimes you just, and like, I think I am gonna take a little bit of a social media break at some point because I really need to like just focus on the music I'm recording and producing, focus on the grants I want to apply to, like, and focus on practicing for live performances.
And just to give an example too about relevance, nobody was talking about Lord 2 months ago, right? Right now, everyone's talking about Lord. And it's because how artist cycles work is you bank content, you release that content, you create hype with a strategy, not randomly throwing rocks into the wind, and then you do it again. Or even like Lil Nas. No one's talking about him right now. I'll bet you in a year from now, everyone's talking about Lil Nas because he's banking content right now. And like, even to give a more, I guess, smaller example of like a junior musician or like somebody who's coming into it, I was talking to a guitarist and he's nonstop playing gigs all the time. And his guitar mentor asked him, well, how many hours are you putting into practice? And he's like, well, I'm playing gigs all the time. You're not going to get better playing gigs. You have to practice. So you have to go back, actually scale back how many gigs you're taking, even though that's what's making you money, in order to improve yourself to get to the next level so you're actually making more money. So
yeah, this is really great advice.
Good. I hope so. This is like my secondary job is business advice. And funnily enough, that's actually my mom worked for a not-for-profit organization and was a small business. She would help start up small businesses. Funnily enough, gives me no advice.
It's always like that.
Yeah. She's like, I don't know anything. And I'm like, you literally help people do this. But she's like, I don't know.
It's in your genetics to be good at.
Guess so. Yeah. So workaholic is definitely in my genetics.
So we're down to our last 2 questions. The first one is, what piece of advice would you give to an emerging artist beginning their career?
Ooh, I'll keep it short on this one because I feel like I've done a lot already.
Given a lot of great advice.
Yeah, just like the basic, what would I say for an emerging artist? Have fun and don't forget about the fun throughout the work. If you get to a point where it's only work and it's not fun anymore, you need to take a step back and remember how to have fun.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
important.
And that's something I have to tell myself too, because I started to hate music for a little while there and had to take a step back so that I learned to enjoy it again.
Especially for burnout. Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
So the last question is, what music recommendation would you like to share with our audience?
Go check out Futurette's new album and specifically the song Next Life. The music video is incredible. It's fully animated. And again, those are the people who have been working on my music project with me and my releases that are coming out. So I seriously love that song. I listen to it all the time. It's got a cute little coffee cup with like a butt drawn on it. That is like the character for the song, and it's very cute. So go check it
Love
out.
it. That's awesome.
Okay, we did it. We're
Yay!
finished.
Thank you for
Yay.
having me, Emma.
Thanks so much for being on. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Bedroom Studios podcast. Don't forget to add this podcast to your playlist and follow us at Bedroom Studios Podcast. You can follow Feura on social media and check out her music. All links can be found in the episode description. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.